All right, so today we are covering fractions, decimals, and percent word problems. So when we're given a decimal, the first thing we have to do is actually be able to say this properly. How do we say this decimal properly? Yes, Sarah?
0 and 6300.
That's right. We say 0, the lead 0, and we read the decimal as an and. So when you hear and, that's your decimal place, 0 and 63 hundredths. And if you can say it, then you can write the fraction, which would be 63 over 100. Now, to convert a decimal to a percent, we move the decimal. What do we do? Which direction? Yes.
We move it 2 times to the right.
2 times to the right. Once, twice. And one way to remember which direction to move it in is because D comes before P in the alphabet. If D is here and P is here, we're moving from decimal to percent that way. Okay? And the same thing goes if we are moving from percent to the decimal. If P is over here in the alphabet to the right, and I'm moving over here to D in the alphabet, percent to decimal, I'm moving it to 2 times, once, twice to the left. Now, when I'm moving, what that really means is we are multiplying or dividing by what? Anybody? Yes. 100. So when I go from decimal to percent, we're multiplying by 100, right? Multiplying by 100, and I'm left with the 63%. If I'm doing this, I'm dividing by 100, right? I get 29 over 100, right? So that's what we're doing. That's the math behind that. Okay, what would I do with this decimal? How about Josh?
You would move the decimal over 2.
And what does it become? What percent?
7%.
7%. Good. What about the next one? Camille.
You'd move it to the left 2 times, and you'd get 18,000.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, you could say 18 thousandths or 0 and 18 thousandths. Now, when I'm talking about my cat and overdosing, this is important with that lead 0, especially if you're in 7th grade and going to Mr. Chidas' class, because he'll have your head if you don't write a lead 0. So, one time my doctor did this, and I didn't see the decimal there. But if your doctor, doctors, they have terrible writing. Okay, doctors, don't get mad at me. But had they done this, you would have known that was a decimal. So I gave my cat once 6 mLs, not 6/10 of an ml. Almost killed him, but he was okay. He lived through that. All right, so is that clear? So we say 0 and, the decimal is the and, 18 thousandths. Now, to read our decimals, you said it perfectly, 18 thousandths. We count, this is the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths, and we just say the number. 18, it goes to the thousandths, 18 thousandths. Okay? 0 and 18 thousandths. Everybody clear on how to say those? Okay. So just a little recap. If it's decimal to percent, we move to the right. If it's percent to decimal, we move to the left. You don't have to write the whole alphabet. All right, if I have a fraction, how do I convert that to a decimal? Yes, Jordan.
You divide numerator by denominator.
Right, dividing the numerator by the denominator. The top dog goes in the dog house. Okay, and we are dividing 8 into that, 7.0000. And we just divide. It goes 0 times. I would take it out to the 10 thousandths place to make sure there's not an ending to it. There's a lot of decimals that go to at least the thousandths. I've got this one memorized because I give quizzes out of 8. So I know 7 out of 8 is 87.5%. So I know this decimal. So give yourself at least 3 places, if not 4. I said 10 thousandths. Now I'm at 875 thousandths. 0 and 875 thousandths. How do we convert that to a decimal? A percent? Carson?
Multiply it by 100
Multiply it by 100 and move that decimal
to the right twice.
to the right twice. You guys got it? Now you can leave it like this. You don't need to write it 87.5%. You could write it 87.5%, 87.5%. Either is fine. You can convert that to the fraction. Okay, what do I do here to convert it? Step 1.
Turn it into a decimal.
Okay, where's the decimal naturally in any number if it's not written?
Behind the 1 or in the 20.
Yeah, to the right of the 1, okay? Okay, and so it's always to the right, and then what am I doing with the decimal?
Moving it 2 times to the left.
Good. And it becomes what decimal?
61 hundredths.
Good, and if you can say it, you can write the fraction. Right?
Right.
Questions? Yes.
I mean, I know 61 can't do this, but if, for example, it was 62 and it could be divisible, should we divide?
Absolutely. All fractions are, I want all fractions reduced in algebra. Okay, so what would we do? What would, I kind of can do this in my math, a little mental math. 5 goes into 4.0. That's like 5 going into 40. What is that going to be?
28.
0 and 8 tenths. So our decimal is 8 tenths. What percent would that be? Who's behind Alina? What's your name? Lily. What percent is that?
Which number?
The top row? 8, 0 and 8 tenths.
80%.
Move it 2 times to the right. What would this decimal be, please? How about right here in the green shirt? What's your name?
Me, Hannah.
Hannah.
Which
16. What would that be? 16%. What would that become decimal wise?
it would be 16 hundredths.
Perfect. 0 and 16 hundredths. Okay. How would I write that as a fraction, Amrit?
16 over 100.
16 over 100. And can we reduce that? 2 goes into both. How many times? I'd be left with, but I can still reduce that. What can I divide into both of those? 2. 2 goes into 8. And 2 goes into 50. 4 25ths. Good. So you see how I did that in 2s? I kept getting even numbers. So I just kept going in 2s. All right, next one. Percent. Sophia.
Yeah. It would be 9/10%.
9/10%. Good. Yes. Move it over 2 times. And it is 9 thousandths. If you can say it, 0 and 9 thousandths. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Next one, Shoshana. What decimal?
It would be 3/10.
0 and 3 tenths. You guys are forgetting your lead zeros. If you have Mr. Chides, he'll have your head. What grade are you in?
7.
Okay, yeah, he'll have your head next year. Let's get in that habit. Okay,
And then it's 30%.
30%. What if I have a big number like 270%? How about, Alina, how would I convert that to a decimal?
For 270%, you can still move it over 2 times.
Good, and so it would be,
So that would be, for a decimal, that would be 2 and 7/10.
perfect. And if you can say it, you can write it. 2 and 7 tenths. Right? Just 2 and put the 7 over the fraction. 7 tenths. You could have also called it 27 over 10. You can't have a decimal in your fraction, though. Are you guys good? Am I going too fast? Lots to do. Okay, we have 20 minutes. Okay. if you have a repeating decimal, there's not much to think of. We still do the same thing. We divide it. Denominator divides into numerator. Top dog goes in the dog house. If it's written like this, this is still like your top dog. Okay, that goes in the box divided by the outside. Inside divided by the outside. So we just do the division. And we say 6 goes into 1 0 times. I have a remainder of 4. Bring down a 0. It goes 6 times. I have a remainder of 4. Uh-oh, I'm seeing a repeat. How do I write that? Rand?
You put a line over the 1 6.
Over the 1 6? Just over the first 6. At the first sign of the repeat, we write the line. Okay? I'm not going to put it over multiple. Does that make sense? Just over the first repeat, we put the line. All right. Now, if I write this out, my next digit would be a 6. So if I move it over, I'm not just doing once, twice, and adding a 0, because this is a huge difference. Right? We know that next digit after the 6 is going to be another 6. So really, what percent would that be? Right in the back.
16.6 repeated.
16.6 repeated, yes. Now that 0.6 repeated is really important. You don't want to cut that off. Okay? This is the difference right now. Like, I'm refinancing. And when you're talking big money like house loans or investments, my old loan was for 20 years at 3.9%. Now it's 3.325. 325 thousandths. Okay? Just from 3.9 to 3.325, my monthly payment is going down $200 a month. So we don't want to round this to a 0. Do you understand that? That is very important that you imply it's 0.6 repeated. Now, you don't see that at the bank. So these, we have to convert that portion to a fraction. Anything repeated really is over what? 9. So it's 16 and 6/9 repeated percent, right? But we want to reduce fractions. So 6/9 reduces to 2/3. 0.6 repeated is 2/3. 0.3 repeated is, everybody? 0.3 repeated is what fraction? 1/3. 0.6 repeated is 2/3. And that's because, remember, this is this. 6 over 9. Anything repeated is over 9. 3 goes into both of those, so it takes it to 2/3. You should have that memorized, that this is 2/3. Yes, Sydney?
Are you ever allowed to round it to 17?
No, because if you did that, like, think about my at $260,000, that could be a difference of $100 that you're rounding. Do you understand? Unless they tell you to round. In money, those quarter percents mean a lot of money. That's $200 a month is $2,400 a year, right? You want to just throw away $2,400 a year? I could go on vacation for that. I could buy a new Nikon camera. I could buy myself a new Mac. I could do a lot of things. I don't want to throw that money away. So do you understand why we don't cut that off? Okay, does everybody remember 0.2 repeated is what fraction? 2/9. Everybody, 0.1 repeated is what fraction? 0.3 repeated is what fraction?
1/3.
Good. 0.4 repeated? 0.5 repeated? 0.6 repeated?
2/3.
Beautiful. 0.7 repeated?
7/9.
0.8 repeated?
8/9.
And 0.9 repeated is really as close as we get to 1, so we say 1. Because it's 9 over 9, and that equals 1, right? All right, so now we are doing, And if you have, let's say you have two digits that are repeated. Let's say we had like something like this. That would be 45 over 99, and then you reduce. Do you understand? 9 goes into that 5 times. Okay, and if you had 456 over 999, oh, sorry, that I did it backwards. Let's say you have 3 numbers repeated. It's going to be over 3 9s. Is everybody clear on that? If you can reduce it, reduce it. If you can't, that's 5, that's 6. 3 will go into both of these. That would be 41 times, and I don't know, 41 or something. Yes.
So let's say how you said the point one, the 123rd thousandths as a repeating decimal. But if it was 23rd, the 203 would be over 99.
Oh, what you're saying? If it's 23?
Yeah, and then there's the one in front of it.
Oh, and only these two? Okay, that's different. There's no shortcut for that. We have to do a big mathematical properties of equalities and solve it. So don't worry about it. I'm just showing you the really quick ones. Okay? That involves math. The other is our shortcut that we can take. All right, so here we are at, 77 and 7/9%. Right away, just convert that. Say 77.7 repeated. Then we are moving our decimal 2 times to the right, once, twice, right? Okay, and what would that be as a decimal? How about Alina? How am I going to write that as a decimal?
Oh, as a decimal, that would be 77 hundredths and.
Okay, notice I went from here. I go from here to here, right? Yeah, let me go in yellow. I'm going from here to here. Then I go from here to here. And then I go from here to here. So what am I doing? I went from here to here. Now what?
That would be 70, as in,
Look at how I start it.
oh, would it be 7 continued?
Okay, I'm right here. I'm right here.
Oh, so it's just 7 tenths continued?
Or we don't say tenths, 0.7 repeated. Yeah. 0.7 repeated. That's it. Okay, we don't need to show it as long as we show the bar. We don't want to see the extras. Sophia will knock you off points if you write an additional 7 there. Okay? All right, and then what's the fraction for that, Alina?
The fraction for that would be,
Anything repeated is over.
over 9, it would be 7 over 9.
Perfect. Are you guys clear? All right, so 8 9ths is what decimal? How about Alina?
8 ninths would be, sorry, 1 second.
What's the pattern here?
Oh, that's 8 repeated.
Okay, 0.8 repeated. Good. And then if 8 9ths, this is 7 9ths, and this is this, what percent is it going to be?
The percent would be 8 and 8 ninths.
Not 8.
88 and 8 ninths.
Perfect, yes. Okay, you get the idea?
Yeah.
And sometimes I call on you because when you speak it, you learn it. Like, I'm a better teacher this year in algebra than I was the first year because I speak it all day long. And sometimes I work through my problems. So if I hear that you're stumbling, I might call on you just so you can work it out in your head. You know what I mean? All right, 66 2/3. Camille, what would that be?
66, no, 0.6 repeated.
Good. And then what fraction?
6 over, no, 2/3.
Perfect. So it would be 0.6 repeated. She jumped right here to here to here. Good. 5, 6. This is going to be a little bit different. I have it memorized because I give a lot of quizzes, so I know what percent that works out to be. But you'll notice my 3 is repeated. So what do I convert that to? Yes, Jordan.
To a
What percent second? Right? Would be
83.3 repeated percent, which is 83 and 1/3%.
perfectly said. You guys good on that? Okay. All right. If I have a mixed number, you could just convert that mixed number. 3/5, 5 goes into 3.0. It's like 5 goes into 30. How many times? Yes. 0.6 or 0 and 6/10. Right? So we could just take that portion and divide it. Or you could go 4 times 5 is 20 plus 3. 23 divided by 5, but it's more work. I could do it mentally just converting the 3/5. Now, what do I do to convert that to a percent? Sarah?
You just move it over to the right.
And it becomes what percent?
460%.
Okay. Do you feel okay about those mixed numbers? Okay. I'm going to skip this one. That would be 0.5 repeated, 5/9. And converting this is going to be 712.5%. So are we getting that? Okay, so now let's jump to our word problems. Okay, the first type is a ratio conversion. How would I write 6 out of 20, guys? Yes. 6 over 20. Now you could do these in a couple different ways. You could do them by doing your is over of. For ratio conversions, it doesn't work so well. So make your 6 out of 20. Is what? Yes, equals. And then you could write just n% or n over 100. They're equivalent. 2 ways to do that. So I convert my 6 over 20. When I divide 20 into 6, I get 0 and 3/10. Now to convert from a decimal to a percent, I'm moving twice to the right. Once, twice, I add a 0 and bring this percent sign over. I'm going to move it over twice and it becomes 30%. Okay, did anybody not get that? Okay, good. Yes, Sydney.
Are you also allowed to do proportion or?
Yes, that's fine. Absolutely. There are lots of ways. I'm teaching how to build your equation. If you build the proportion, that's building an equation. I'm teaching translation because we have a lot of that to do this year. And I think it's because it's what comes naturally to me. But that method of setting it up, 6 out of 20 equals x over 100, absolutely. And remember, you could reduce. 3 goes into that 2 times. 2 goes into that 3 times. 2 goes into that 10 times. So then I get 10x equals 300. Right? X equals 30. Make sure you know that that's a percent. 100%, that is okay. This is not a method I'm teaching you today. It's how to just get through them. Can I move on? Okay. All right, so what percent? Now, if I'm doing my translation, what do I put for what percent, Alina? Look at my last one. What did I put for what percent?
N%.
Okay, m%. Of means?
It is out of.
No, don't worry about out of, but it's the word of in math means
Divided.
not dividing, but multiply. Like if I had 10% of 100, I'd be multiplying. Of means to multiply, okay? And then I bring my 3 5/10 down. What does the is in math mean? Good. And then I bring the 84/100ths down. Okay, and then we solve for the n. Hello? Yes, he can be moved to accelerated math. I don't know about that. Okay, so if you're having a problem also, you in the video, you can skip right to the part where you're having a hard time. Okay, and we're bringing down 84. Now, how do I get n% alone?
Divide by 3/5 on both sides.
Divide by 3 5/10, and then I'm doing my division. The top one goes in the doghouse, right? I'll do the division for you. So this is going to cross cancel. Remember, 0 and 84/100ths goes into the doghouse. Oops. And this becomes 3 5/10. And we end up with n%. Now, to lose the percent, what's it going to be? N equals what, everybody? Everybody.
4%.
Okay. Multiply it by 100 and move it twice. Are there any questions? Okay, percent of a number. How would I translate this one? Sarah?
You could do, well, it says 112%. You can also change that into a decimal.
A decimal, and what decimal would it be?
That would be 1 and 12/100ths.
Perfect. Okay, Alina, what does of mean?
Multiplied.
Okay, bring my 650 down. Is means what number? N, X, whatever you want to name it. Notice, I'm not doing inverse operations, I'm just multiplying here. It's straight multiplication. You could have done the is over of as well. If you do the is over of, it was going to look like this. This is your is. No, sorry. This is your of. See, I get mixed up on that is over of. Okay, your of has got to be this. The is has to go with this, and here's your percent. Is over of equals a percent over 100. Another way to think of that is the part to whole, part to whole. I just like translating. So for the next one, how am I translating this? How about Josh?
So you write 0.07
Okay, 0.07. Okay, 0.07 times.
x or n equals 31 and 3.
Okay, and is my final answer going to be a percent? No, because it says what number, not what percent. So don't add a percent sign or I'll mark you off. Does that make sense? Okay. We divide them and we get n is equal to 450. Okay, questions? Okay, I got to get through these two more, sorry. When we do percent of change, that's like a number goes to a number. What's the percent increase or decrease? Are you with me, Alina? Okay. We might say, this is the formula, the change over the original amount. The change over the original amount. So what's the change is how we find our difference. The change would be 83 minus 75. Over the original amount, what's the original amount? What's the first thing written?
75.
So that's our original. Whatever's first written becomes original amount. So it's really 8 over 75. So do you understand? We're just finding the difference of this goes in the numerator over the original amount. divide it out, and we convert it to a percent. So what this means is, was it an increase or a decrease? Look at the numbers. I went from 75 to 83. Is that an increase or a decrease? So it's an increase to 10 2/3%. By 10 2/3%. Okay, this one I want to do this. I really, tax is, how do we get tax? What do I do to calculate it? Yeah.
For example, would you multiply it by like the amount of tax, like 0.09%?
But we don't know what the tax is. So anytime we find tax, like when I go to the restaurant, tax is always percent of a number. So if tax is percent of a number, the tax here, they're telling us what it is. 3 63/100 is my equal sign. Do I know the percent? Do we know the percent? No, they want the tax rate. So we're going to call that X percent or N percent. Of means times. So the tax rate times what number? 44. So now I divide by 44, and that's how I figure out my percent. Now they did it a little bit differently. They set it up as percent of change, that your tax was that difference. The tax was, I don't usually do that. I like to go tax is percent of a number. Okay, I'll record, hold on. I'll record the markup and discount if you want to go to the end of the recording, okay?